Good morning. We are live. I'm just going to check. All right, looks good. We'll give it a couple minutes for some people to join us. How's your Wednesday going?
Going all right. Yeah.
Good. All right, we got some people hopping on. Good morning, Dave. Thanks for joining us today. Eric's with us. Thanks for joining us, Eric. Good morning. All right, looks like we've got a few people on, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. All right, well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our network welcome. I am Jamie Chavez, President and CEO of the Westminster Chamber of Commerce. And every Wednesday, we bring you a live broadcast featuring one of our newest members to introduce them and give them a chance to talk to you about their business. If you're new to our broadcast, thank you for being here. We appreciate it. I encourage you to like and follow our page so that you get notifications for when we go live in the future. If you're on YouTube, you can hit subscribe and also get those notifications and then view all of our previous broadcasts there as well. We also offer broadcasts on Mondays, which are dedicated to city updates from our city councilors, Mayor Pro Tem, and our mayor. These broadcasts offer a chance to hear what's going on down at City Hall, and so we hope that you will tune in for those as well. And we also reserve the last Friday of the month for county updates featuring Jeffco County Commissioner Tracy Kraftler. So stay tuned into those for a broader for information on broader county matters. As you watch this broadcast this morning, we encourage you to engage with us. If you've got questions or comments or just want to say hello, drop those in the comment section and we'll address those during the interview. And now a very warm welcome to Nathan Sanchez from Sanchez Insurance Group. Thank you for joining us today.
Yes, thanks for having me. So I guess I'll just start with a little introduction. As the title of the agency implies, I'm an insurance agency. And so we like to be able to serve a lot of different functions. The only function that we don't currently serve is health insurance. So if there's health insurance, we partner with a lot of health insurance people. But literally anything else, whether it's from personal needs, auto and home insurance, life insurance, things like that, to anything business related, which is primarily what I do in the agency. The agency has been, when did I start it? 10 years ago at this point, almost.
Yeah. And we're kind of mixing it up today because you're not a new member of the chamber, but you never got the opportunity to do this interview. So
okay, I was wondering when you said that comment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember though when I first joined the chamber, and kind of the welcome I got from you guys at the time, and it was fun because that day, it was around this time of year. I feel like it was sometime in the spring, but we had one of those freak springtime winter storms.
Yeah.
And I think it was something like 12 or 13 people said they were going to show up to my ribbon cutting. And I feel like 10 or 11 of them still showed up anyways, even though there's just this crazy blizzard going on outside.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I still have that picture. It's pretty cool. So yeah, since I've been in the chamber, like I said, we focused a lot on just kind of helping people out and making sure that we're meeting people's needs where they're at, because so many times I feel like there's a lot of opportunity for insurance to feel like it's a little bit transactional. Here's how much I pay. No, just give me that. But sometimes it does come across as like if you were to go to a doctor, for example, and say, well, just how much for an aspirin? And they're like, well, no, let me actually look and see what's going on with you before I just charge you for an aspirin, because you might need something different. It's the same approach, and I feel like trying to toe that line of still being that kind of service when marketing and everything else is kind of heavily commoditized the insurance industry altogether is a challenge, but something we strive to do.
Yeah. We've had a few people join us. Just want to say hello to Denise, Parker, and Brian. Thank you for joining us today. So tell us a little bit about the mission of the Sanchez Insurance Group and kind of what your biggest goals are for working with clients.
I may have answered that partially, at least. So a lot of it does have to do with just kind of, like I said, meeting the need where it's at. So if somebody doesn't have enough insurance, I want to be one of the people to tell them, okay, here's why you might want to consider more. If somebody's far overinsured, because that does happen sometimes actually as well, I will be one of the people to tell them, well, you might want to consider, doing this, because the likelihood of this event or that kind of thing might not be worth the extra premium you're paying to have that covered. But yeah, I feel like this whole thing kind of started with me realizing that I like to be at least face to face with people. This is a little bit different, obviously. I'm not used to be on camera, but being face to face with people and being able to help solve problems for people, and that's kind of why I got into this industry to begin with.
Yeah.
But yeah, the mission really is just to grow as responsibly and as quickly as we can, because I definitely don't want to be one of those agencies that we grow so aggressively but I'm not taking the steps in between to make sure that the people that are already with our agency are just feel like they've just been abandoned. Like, oh, I sold your policy, now I don't care about you. I'm just moving on, and I'm just writing more policies. I want to make sure that I have the capacity to actually service all of my people, and that's kind of a common complaint we get sometimes from people when they are saying, I've been with XYZ company for a number of years, but every time I call them, I can't get a hold of anybody, or it just doesn't feel like they know I exist anymore or care that I'm a client.
Yeah. So how often does that happen, that you sit down with a client and kind of review what their policy is and decide that they're either underinsured or overinsured?
So we'll remind our clients once, sometimes twice a year, to, hey, let's sit down, or let's at least do some sort of review of your policy, and we'll encourage people to do that. So we'll give them a couple opportunities throughout the year for sure. That way, nothing is a surprise, and everything is more of a conversation we're having before the fact, rather than having a conversation after the fact and saying, okay, well, we never sat down and talked about this, so it never came up that you might want this kind of coverage.
Right. And do you often find overinsured? Is that common?
There have been some cases where, yeah, I would say just on the whole, home insurance can sometimes feel to many that I feel I need this much because my house is worth this much money. And let's say it's $1 million home, right? But if the structure itself can be rebuilt for $300,000 or $400,000, sometimes people feel like what they were used to being told is you need $1 million coverage. And they maybe they purchase that, and then they come to me and I'm getting them a second opinion, and I'm telling them, well, you don't exactly need that unless there's someone, forcing you to say you have to have that much coverage. Because at the end of the day, that's maybe on the home insurance side, one of the biggest misconceptions is people feel like your home insurance covers the market value of your home, but that's not at all the case. In fact, it has more to do with what is it going to cost if we were to rebuild this house on this plot of land. So the value of the land, all of that stuff, none of that is included.
Yeah.
There are creative ways we can get around. So even when a loan when a lender is asking for a specific amount, they say, I want $1 million coverage. We can add endorsements on there that can add an additional 50% or sometimes just a blank check of guaranteed replacement cost onto that policy for not very much more. And we're still covering all our bases.
Awesome. Denise says, I use Sanchez Insurance Group for my home and auto. Very helpful and personable. Thanks, Denise. That's good to know. We do have a question from Brian Head. What are the benefits of working with an agent over buying insurance online? That's a good question.
So what you get, it's kind of like the difference between what are the benefits of if you were to do work on your own house versus hiring a contractor to do the same work, right? In this example of a contractor, right? You're paying for the tools that they have. You're paying for their experience and expertise and advice they're going to provide throughout the time that they're working on this project for you. Is very similar in the respect of insurance, where the online things, sometimes they can be significantly cheaper because they're not paying an agent. They're not paying for the overhead of anyone specific that's going to answer the phone and take care of you. So you're not going to get that advice. They are literally order takers. If you say, I want just whatever the state requires of me and I just want state minimum liability, they're very unlikely to even ever suggest anything other than that. They're just going to say, okay, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, take your order, and then move on with their day. And very unlikely you're ever going to talk to that same person ever again. So when something happens and then, you're now stuck with the bill for whatever happened with your claim, you're in a spot of there's nobody to call. There's nobody to talk to. There's nobody to say, okay, well, we never discussed this. I didn't know that this was important. This wasn't important, or whatever else. And at the end of the day, I'd rather have a tougher conversation on the front end with somebody than ever have a conversation on the back end where I'm telling someone, well, sorry, at the end of the day, I wanted to save you $5 a month, so I didn't put this coverage on there. That's never makes sense.
Yeah. Thank you. What are some common misconceptions about insurance, and how do you go about addressing those in your agency?
So one that comes up every now and then is we like to have at least some sort of idea of what we're comparing to. So a lot of times we'll ask, okay, well, do you have a copy of any of your insurance documentation? Do you know how much you're paying, what your coverages are, anything like that? And sometimes we'll get pushback from people where they'll say, well, I don't want to give you any of that information because it'll give you some sort of advantage if you have that, right? The reality is insurance agents don't have any control over the premium that they quote. If they did, the insurance companies wouldn't exist anymore, because it'd be far too tempting for me to just say, oh, well, you're paying this much, you're paying $100 a month. Well, here you go. Now ours is $90 a month, right? Just so I can get your business. So that's maybe one of them. And I'll remind people, but even if somebody pushes back on that, then I'll just say, well, I will quote the best I can with the recommendations I have. And I can't change the premium. That's not how it works. And to that respect too, sometimes I think a misconception can also be that insurance agents are as involved as people have a different idea of how much the insurance agent is involved in the claim. Sometimes they'll think, okay, well, I'll call the insurance agent and I'll tell them what happened then, and it's just done, right?
Yeah.
And some agents will do that and can do that. But I found over the years that there's usually so many follow-up questions from underwriting or from claims, that at the end of the day, I just kind of become this middleman, and it takes twice as long to get all the information to the right place.
Yeah.
But with that said, all of my clients, when they do go through claims, I always offer the chance to say, And if there's anything that you have a question about, something that I can follow up with on your behalf, anything like that, let me know and I will do so throughout the claim. And in the last 10 years, I've only had 2 phone calls like that ever.
Yeah.
They said, hey, your claims team isn't pulling their weight, or there's something that's taking too long, or whatever else. So that's one thing that I really kind of, I'm happy to do it if I have to, but the fact that I haven't really had to advocate a whole lot for my clients on the claims side is actually a good thing. I like that.
Yeah. And how does the Sanchez Insurance Group stay current with industry trends and changes in the insurance regulations?
Well, there's the portion of that that's required, which is every year we're doing all of our continuing education and to keep our licenses up to date and everything. But beyond that, there are lots of events within the industry that keep people current with different things, and sometimes it's really good news, like, hey, Colorado's figuring something out, and now we're seeing a little bit of relief on the auto insurance rates or something. And then other times it's things like buckle up because home insurance premiums are going to be going up again. Right? But at the end of the day, yeah, there's a lot of opportunity for that, whether it's in-person things or even just like webinars and things like that.
Okay. We have a comment from Eric. Nate and Cassie are awesome. Love their customer service. Cassie is your wife. Maybe you want to talk about that a little.
For sure. Yeah. And Cassie has been in the agency for, I'm going to mess this up. Has it been 2 or 3 years? Maybe 3 years at this point. And it took a little bit of time, but we eventually bought her away from the corporate world, working for other people. And we've been married for 13 years, 14 years almost. But yeah, it's been nice. We've been, and then also in the office, we have Andrea. She's our CSR, and she's amazing. She does a lot of stuff for the agency, and we wouldn't, there's been many times where I'm like, I'm so glad she's here, because sometimes the challenge is that you get a couple that are working together in the business, and that just means like you can never take any time off.
Right.
Vacation,
how do you go on vacation?
Yeah, how do you go on vacation, right? You can't.
Yeah.
Or you could try, but there's still going to be a lot of distractions and whatever else. So having another person that doesn't live with us in the agency that we trust and know is amazing. So we've been very fortunate with that as well.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious because we just went through, some pretty difficult things in our country and in our state with COVID, and then with the fires that had a huge impact on, obviously, a lot of people in our area and homes and insurance. So maybe you could talk about how you helped people during that time, and what was different and how you had to adjust with all that was going on.
So I guess, so you're probably speaking of the Marshall fires specifically. So with the Marshall fires, there were a lot of, luckily, I guess in my agency, I only had maybe a couple of clients that were affected by the Marshall fires. They had smoke claims. They didn't lose their house, but they did have some significant smoke damage that happened there, and they went through those claims, and everything went smoothly. But beyond that, I do remember quite a few fundraising events and things like that were happening that that our agency helped support for the people affected by those fires. And then if there is a small silver lining to what happened with the Marshall fires, it's that the insurance industry as a whole kind of had to get a little bit of a wellness check of how are we evaluating people's homes, and are we doing it properly? Because it's probably not just any one specific company, but I'm sure many people have noticed that now, just by default, reconstruction costs have gone up drastically on people's homes. It just doesn't matter where you live in Colorado. It's gone up because they've now seen what happens when you have a concentrated area like that. And some people are grumpy about it because they're like, I'm never going to have to need to use my insurance. But others are probably kind of glad that there's at least some efforts being made, regardless of the of how on it the agent is, making sure that those numbers are appropriate. And then, as far as COVID was concerned, that was a weird year or so of of a lot of things. But we kept running, and I had to adjust to getting used to things like Zoom calls, and adjust to. I actually never fully adjusted to working from home. I just came to my office still, and I just shut my door during the full lockdown, because I am definitely one of those people that you cannot put me in my house and expect me to focus on anything work related. So it doesn't work that way. So yeah, but I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah. So what got you into insurance? Like when you go to work every day, what is the thing that you're most excited about in your job?
Well, I guess so. I haven't met too many people who were really, really excited about getting into the insurance industry until they were just kind of in it. I feel like I've met a lot of people who were doing insurance, but they just kind of stumbled into it because of some life circumstance that was happening at the time. So for me, it was I was a helicopter mechanic for many years prior to doing this, and the contract that we were on, it kind of started out. It was fairly reasonable. I was out for 2 weeks, traveling, and then 2 weeks back home, and then that became, well, now it's 2.5 weeks out. And then it became, now it's 3 weeks out. And then became, well, now there's, it's 3 weeks out, but your travel time is included in your personal time at home as well. So I started realizing that I'm like, all the people that I work with on this small little crew of people, my world was like this big, with just a group of 4 or 5 people that I saw all the time. And all of them were divorced with kids. And I'm like, that cannot be an accident that that's the case. Yeah. So I started looking around for other things, and it's like the universe knew I was looking for something else or wanted something else at that point, because our contract got cut, and then they said, well, we're gonna have to lay you off unless you want to move back to Oregon and work in our shop. But I just moved to Colorado, and it didn't make sense for me to do that. So I got a job at this is a short version of the story, but so I got a job at a pawn shop, and I realized that interacting with a bunch of people every day and solving different problems was very rewarding in that respect. And it wasn't just like, okay, I talked to 3 people all day and I'm fixing a machine. I talk to a bunch of people, and I'm actually making some sort of impact on people's lives, which is pretty cool. And so that's what gets me excited about it. And every time there's something for my daughter's school or some sort of event or some sort of thing where life throws you a curveball and you got to be flexible, that's where I'm grateful every day that I have the opportunity I do within the insurance industry, because I have control over my own life and schedule, which is nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. What sets you apart from other insurance agencies in the area? Other than, some of the things you've mentioned, what's special? Why should people call you?
I absolutely hate answering this question. I don't think there's really anything different. I think maybe if there is something different, maybe it's just a willingness to try different things. Whereas I feel like sometimes you can get into working with certain insurance agencies out there, and maybe they're just kind of they're in their own cogs of their own machine, and I do X, Y, and Z, and that's it, right? Or I'm happy to help you if you need this, and that's their one little widget they work on. Or is how much are you paying in premium? Is it over $5,000? No, okay, then I'm moving on, right? And I've seen that within the commercial insurance industry as well. So there are times when I see nobody. I only want to work with the little guys. I only want to work with the big guys. I only want to work in this area or that area. So I think maybe one thing that differentiates us, I guess, is the fact that we'll take a look at everything, and we're going to give it our best shot just to see what we can help people out with. And there's been very little that has come across my desk that we haven't come up with some other option for them to look at. And sometimes I'm just telling people, you know what, I looked at all these other options and you're already in a good spot, but I might recommend you change this on your policy because that's important. I didn't see it on there. And that's fine too. I'm still helping people out, and hopefully that didn't take me too long to get to that point, but it happens. Sometimes we spend a lot of time on something that doesn't end up paying the agency anything, but at the end of the day, you take care of somebody, and whether or not they're your client, we've gotten clients off of people who came to us originally saying, I want to have a quote on this, and I was able to just say, well, you're already in a good spot. And their response was, okay, well, I'm going to send you so-and-so anyways, because you were straightforward and honest about that.
Yeah, that's a nice compliment. Do you have we have just a couple minutes. Do you have any success stories or testimonials that you want to share, or anything else that you'd like people to know?
I'll just kind of vaguely mention the fact that, and obviously I'm a little biased in my agency. Like I said, I handle a lot of the commercial insurance. I personally enjoy seeing the progression every time it happens. When I start with somebody walks into my office, and maybe they were referred over because they speak Spanish, maybe they were referred over for some other reason, whatever the case is, and they start a policy with us, and it's just their general liability for their small contracting business, for example, and it's just them. And then maybe a year later, I get a phone call. Hey, I'm hiring employees, and I'm told I need workers' comp, and I help them out with that, and I connect them with different people to help them grow and do different things. And now they're like, well, now I need to have a business auto policy. Now I need a commercial umbrella. Now we're planning for some, our exit plan. What is our exit plan, and how is that protected in the meantime? So now we're talking about life insurance for the business owners themselves. And so it's I take a lot of pride in that when I can see a business that started from just that solopreneur that walked through the door and needed this small little thing taken care of, and now we're helping them out with everything. And so that's pretty cool too.
Yeah, it's cool that you get to watch that progression of that person's success and growth. Yeah, that's awesome. All right, well, thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for everybody tuning in. Hope everybody has a really great Wednesday, and we'll see you next week. And thanks again, Nate.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, have a good day. Bye.